Greetings, members of the Faculty Equity Training Academy. I hope that you are all doing well and that your students are doing well and that they have had a smooth transition to the new semester and a smooth transition to your course. I also hope that you have had a smooth transition into our community of practice and that you are having a smooth transition into the curriculum that has been rolled out thus far. I also hope that by now you have found your way into Module 1. So let's get into it for you. I'd like to spend a few moments in this video talking you through the tasks that I'm asking you to attend to within this module. You will see the first task that I've assigned is for you to view, read, and then reflect on relevant research pertaining to inclusion at community college. So you will see a research article based on practitioner research by a community college professor who has committed 19 years of his career to working in this context. And he talks about practitioner research that he did using universal design. And so here you will have an 8-page article, very short article that I'm asking you to read, along with a 33-minute video. After completing those two tasks, you will have a cogent understanding of universal instructional design, also called universal design for learning, and you'll have ideas on how others have employed this idea in their own classrooms. So the first task is really just to educate yourself on research relevant to our first equity guiding principle of inclusion. Once you've done that, I ask you to take a couple of days to reflect on it, give some thought to what you have read, to what you have viewed, and then, of course, you always want to check in with your accountability partners, see if they've done their readings and watch the video, engage in discussions at your level of comfort about the content, but just kind of reach out, make sure that your accountability partners have found their way into the module, and kind of, if you have the opportunity, to share some reflections on your read of the research. The second task is that I want you to design an inclusion menu. Once you do the readings and watch the video, you will see that there are 7 fundamental principles of universal design. And so for your inclusion menu, I want you to just have each of those 7 categories. And then I want you to come up with one thing that you can do in your class under each category. So your menu will have each of the 7 fundamental principles. And on principle 1, this is something that you could do. Principle 2, this is something that you can do. In some instances, you may tell me, oh, I'm already doing this, and it just happens to fall under principle 4. In other instances, you might say, I haven't really thought about doing something for principle 7. Here's something that I could do. So you're going to come up with 7 different features of your course that meet one for each of those 7 fundamental principles. And again, a lot of what you are reading and viewing will resonate with many of you, and you will realize that you're doing some of these things. You just don't acknowledge it as being principle 4 of universal design. Now that you know what principle 4 is, you can couch or contextualize that thing, that feature of your course. I believe that many of you are practicing some, if not many, of the principles of universal design. But now that you're getting this new language, you can talk about how what you do is in alignment with this construct of principles of universal design. Okay, the third task that I'd like you to do during this 2-week period will happen hopefully next week. And so next week, what I'm asking you to do is to implement at least one. You don't have to do more than one. Your menu will have 7 items. I want you to pick one of those 7 and do it in your class next week. And then as you're doing it, you're going to be kind of thinking about, how is this impacting my class dynamic? How are these particular students responding? How is my class as a whole responding? What am I noticing about this one feature being added into my class? And again, it could be an existing feature that you've already been doing. You're just now making observations and collecting data on it. or it can be an aspirational feature, something that you haven't done yet, but now you're going to do it for a week during next week, so that you can then come to our February 8th meeting and be prepared to give a 4 to 5 minute mini presentation talking about what you learned. So in that February 8th meeting, I'm going to ask each of you to talk about any insights you've made. Describe the course feature that you chose. Tell us which of the 7 principles it supports, and then highlight any observations. What have you noticed? How have your students benefited from it? How have you, as a professor, engaged differently with your students as a result of it? Does it change anything in your interaction with your students? Does it change anything in the perspective that you have of students as a whole, a particular student, or a subgroup of your students? So that's basically a breakdown of the 4 things that I'm asking you to do with this Module 1 content. This is now the introduction to the content. You will see that the review of research is an article, Planning for Inclusion, by Mino in 2004. The full title of the article is here, Planning for Inclusion, Using Universal Instructional Design to Create a Learner-Centered Community College Classroom. In 8 pages, you will read what this college professor did in his class. I'm not asking you to do his program, but I am asking you to read and learn from his reflections on what he did. So we talked about part 1, the first task. Here is your introduction to that work. Here I have summarized and pulled out salient quotes and summaries from Mino's article on this page. So just by reading the content on this page, you will know what that 8-page article is about. It doesn't give you all the details that you will need to develop your understanding. So I strongly encourage you, read that 8-page article, but if you read this page, you'll have an overview. At the middle of the page, you will have a link, and I'm going to open up the second link. This first link is just a 1-pager that the North Carolina State University created on the principles of universal design. So you're reading about it in the article, but if you click on this first link, you will just see each of the 7 principles with descriptions of them. If you click on the second link, which I will click on here for this purpose, you will see a poster infographic that goes over each of those 7 principles, and it gives you details and examples. That will be helpful for you to see the literature that this construct grew out of. However, again, you're going to want to read the article, because that article is what is giving you the information that you need in order to respond to the assignments. Okay, so now when you finish looking at that infographic, that poster, you will note here, this is the original research on universal design that our Universal Design for Learning is growing out of. Here, if you look at the characteristics of the initial construct of universal design, you can see ways that it has been expanded into Universal Design for Learning. So hopefully this table is something that you will find helpful. The video that I've included for this week is 33 minutes. And by watching this video, you will see examples of how these principles of universal design for learning can be employed in your classroom as a community college professor. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, you'll see the full article, the 8-page article that is assigned for this module. On the next page, you can read the module here within Canvas, or you can download it to your computer or mobile device, print out at your leisure, or read from your device when you're not connected to Wi-Fi. So now let's talk about the inclusion menu assignment. Before attempting to start this assignment, it won't make a lot of sense to you unless you have read the 8-page article and watched the 33-minute video, along with the information that I've summarized for you on the previous page. So please be sure to read the 8-page article and watch the 33-minute video before attempting this assignment, or it'll create unnecessary confusion. Once you've done those 2 tasks, you want to ask yourself a couple of questions to get started. First, what existing features of your course reflect our Delta College's equity guiding principles of inclusion? That question is important because the answer to that question will help you to construct your inclusion menu. Based on your answers to that questions, you will determine if you are already doing some of these things that are categorized under universal design that you can now list on your menu. Secondly, how might your students describe ways that our Delta College equity guiding principle of inclusion can be evidenced in your class? You can go based on comments that you hear from students if you're holding virtual class meetings or in-person class meetings. Some of you are teaching hybrid, some are teaching fully in person, some are teaching fully online. So if you're meeting with students in real time, think about some of the things that they've asked and comments that they've made that can help give you insight as to how they might describe how inclusive your class is or is not. Think about ways that you can address some of the concerns that students have shared with you in email or have posted in your Canvas discussion boards that can also give insight to how they might experience inclusion within your course. And then finally, based on what you learned in that 8-page article and that 33-minute video, how can you apply this information within your class to support your students in the vein of promoting inclusion? So your answers to those 3 questions will help you to give voice to items that belong on your individualized inclusion menu. So what I want you to do is create a 400 to 500 word post. In your post, you're going to be sure to list each of the 7 universal design features, and then you're going to come up with one thing that you can do or that you are already doing that aligns with each of those 7 areas. 7 categories, 1 feature for each. Now, while this discussion board assignment does not require you to respond to your colleagues' posts about their inclusion menus, I'm strongly encouraging you to review the posts made by others. Why? Well, in addition to inspiring your own revisions on your initial draft of your inclusion menu, you might also increase your awareness about how others are applying this information. And sometimes we benefit greatly from that lateral learning. That's one of the best features of the community of practice that we've come together to form. And so as you look at others' iterations of what they are doing, it helps to strengthen and reinforce your own understanding, as well as inspire you on ways to make your work better. So good luck. Here are the 7 instructional design features that we have learned about, that we are continuing to explore within Module 1. And so I am hopeful that after reading the article and watching the video, you will have lots of ideas about what should go on this first draft of your inclusion menu. Okay, I'm going to stop this video because I don't want it to be very long. I just really wanted to talk you through this information. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your accountability partners or our 2 co-leads or myself. Have a great day and welcome to Module 1.